The reason why there are so many compressors on the market is that there are many different audio signals to work with. But to be totally honest, I think that choosing a compressor is a bit of a taste thing. And today I happen to have found a compressor that sounds really great to my taste and also works well with the signals that I sent at it, the Mu. Bonjour à toutes et à tous, my name is ThomC and today we're going to be talking about the Mu by Pulsar Audio. Pulsar Audio is a French company that specializes in plugins that model sought-after pieces of equipment that have marked the sound of many records. And the Mu is no exception to that. It is based on a famous Vari-Mu compressor that is well known for its slower behavior, its mastering applications, its great effect on buses and its warm sound on instruments. Let's check it out. Just a quick disclaimer, there will be quite a bit of talking in this section about the user interface, and that's because there are many different features to talk about. And if you're interested in this compressor in particular, I think you could learn one thing or two. But if you're not interested in that, you could always skip to the other sections with the audio demos, and that will be featured in the comments section and also on the video itself with timestamps. I hope you'll enjoy this one.
You and I, a delicate rise, I'll never feel.
So this is the plugins user interface. On the top left corner we've got some undo and redo buttons, then we've got left and right arrows for presets, and we've got a dedicated presets menu with drum buss, guitar, leveling, master and vocal. We can delete presets, move and rename them. We can also set the preset as default and open the presets directory. We can also save and save as the presets, and we can also go from A to B regarding the settings. So if you want to compare two sets of settings that you've been working with, this is a good way of doing it. And then on the right, we've got some further settings with oversampling. You can show the help balloons. You've got the website, the online support, and the user manuals. You've got the company socials, so go and follow them. And you've got the version of the plugin. So the compressor's got three different sections or different racks. You've got the visualization rack at the top of the plugin. Then in the middle, you've got the compressor control rack. And then you've got the rack of advanced detection functions at the bottom of the plugin. So let's have a look at the visualization rack. If you actually click on the switch here, you'll bypass or activate the plugin. Then you've got the VU meters, and you've also got the option to change it into something more modern, but I actually keep the VU meters for this demo because I actually like it. It works well with my workflow. It's not always the case with some other plugins, but in this case it works well. In the middle of the plugin, we've got the compressor control rack with threshold, output, attack, and release. And we've got the same settings on the right. When the attack time is set to fast, it's 10 milliseconds. And when it's set to slow, it's actually 100 milliseconds. So it's pretty slow for a compressor. You know, it's not the same type of compressor as a FET compressor that would go a lot faster. And the release time is actually 70 milliseconds when it's fast and 1.8 seconds when it's set to slow. So yeah, it's pretty smooth and slow. So we can actually set the compressor to work either in compressor mode or limit mode. In compressor mode, the ratio is pretty low, so it's actually 1.5 to 1, so it's pretty light compression. And in limit mode, it's not very high either, it's actually 4 to 1, except that the ratio will vary with the input signal and also the threshold. So the more gain reduction you'll have, the higher the ratio will be. So in the middle, we've got a dual input control, and the way this compressor works is basically you drive or you increase the input gain and you lower the output in order to compensate. And the more you'll drive the input, the more compression you will have. And also it is worth mentioning that if you drive it very high, you'll actually have more tube saturation because that's the character that the unit imparts. In the middle, we've got other settings. You can basically link or unlink the controls if you want to in the left and right channels with this button. And then right in the center, you can either set the compressor to work with the left and right channels or in mid-side. So this is quite useful for mastering applications or on buses. And you can also unlink the sidechain if you don't want to connect the detection circuit of the two channels. So that will result in a different amount of compression on the left and right channels. And then in the bottom of this section, you've got a mix knob, which is basically a dry and wet knob, so a non-compressed to compressed signal. So this is pretty useful if you want to introduce some of the compressed signal with the uncompressed signal and work in parallel that way. So right in the bottom, we've got the rack of advanced detection functions with the sidechain section on the left, and you can set it to internal or external depending on whether you want the audio input as detection source or an external signal. And then you've got the look ahead and look behind. This is a very interesting feature because if you set it to look ahead, basically you'll compress the transients a bit more. You'll tell the compressor to react a bit before the attack time, whereas if you set it to look behind, it will react after and let the transients through. So this kind of complements the attack time in a nice way. So if you've set the attack time the way you wanted it, but you want to fine tune it the way you want it, this is a pretty good, pretty useful setting. So yeah, basically what it does is that it adds a positive or a negative delay in the detection channel. So there in the middle, we've got the sidechain EQ, we've got a high pass filter, and the way it works is that basically if, say, you set it to 60 Hertz, everything that will be below 60 Hertz won't be compressed. So if you want to tell the compressor, don't compress that part of the signal of your kick drum, for example, this is a good way to do it. And you've got a bell filter in the middle. So for example, if you want to compress more of the snare drum of your room mic, you can do that by setting the frequency to, let's say, between 400 and 600 Hertz or something like that, and then push the gain in order to tell the compressor to compress that spectrum, that part of the spectrum more. Or you can actually compress less of it. And also you've got a high shelf that is set at 3K. So same example, if you have an acoustic guitar that is too bright, you can actually push the gain of the high shelf in order to tell the compressor to compress that region a bit more. And then on the right, we've got the monitoring section with the output, so it's set to output as default, but you can also set it to sidechain if you want to hear the sidechain EQ changes that you've been making. This is pretty nice if you want to fine tune those changes, and then you can set it to left or mid or right and side. In the first example, we'll be listening to some drums, and the drums are Stephen Slate drums 5.5. We'll be automating the release time from slow to fast. Listen to how the tone of the drums change when the release time gets faster. My favorite setting for drums usually revolves around 3 or 4. Let's listen to it bypassed and active. Yeah, this setting is really nice to add punch and movement to the drums. So we'll have a different approach in the next example. We'll be more aggressive with a faster attack and fast release, and we'll drive the dual input a lot more, resulting in more saturation. You'll see that the mix knob will actually go from no compression to maximum, and then it will go back to a more reasonable amount, and then you'll see the plugin being turned off and on again. So this is a great setting to add grit and tone to the drums. In the next example, we'll be listening to some electronic drums with the Linn 60 from Mars. And what I did in this case was to boost the high shelf in order to tame the high information a bit on these drums. So again, the compressor adds a nice glue to the kit and also rounds off the overall tone of the drums. If you've ever worked with compression on pianos, you'll actually know that compression doesn't always work too well with pianos because it tends to choke the signal quite a bit. But in this case, it still remains quite natural. And I'll go from fast release to slower release and listen to how natural it gets with a slower release time. But it also is pretty good with a faster time. So let's listen to it. The next example is possibly my favourite, and that's because I work with acoustic guitars quite a bit. And the fact that you can have this type of compression in the box and this quality is just wonderful. So in this case, I've used a mid-attack, mid-release, and also a bit of look behind in order to still get the groove of the acoustic guitar. It's a slower type of playing, but it still does have a bit of groove to it. I've used a bit of the sidechain EQ. I've actually used the high-pass filter in order not to compress too much of the low end of the guitar in this case, and also the bell shape filter in order to compress a bit more of the frequencies around 3K. The Mu also works really well on bass, and this is a bass that I played with a pick, and I've used it in limit mode. Listen to how the mid frequencies are actually enhanced with the compressor, and also the sound of the pick, the overall punch of the bass. In the next example, we'll be listening to a finger-picked acoustic guitar with my voice. Let's first listen to the acoustic guitar without compression.
She said, leave my life is not
Right, with compression now.
She said leave my life is not clean.
Right, let's re-listen to one bit without compression and then with. Listen to the hammer pull-off that I'm playing on the guitar especially.
My life is not clean.
With compression now.
My life is not clean.
Okay, let's pay attention to the vocal now without compression first.
She said leave my life is not clean.
With compression.
She said leave my life is not clean.
Okay, we'll re-listen to it one last time, this time alternating between bypass and active on both the acoustic guitar and the vocal.
She said leave my life is not clean.
Okay, one last thing regarding the vocal. Try and feel the energy of the word said. We'll first listen to it without the compression and then after with.
She said leave.
Okay, with the compression now.
She said leave.
Now we're going to listen to a few examples in context in Harrison Mix Bus, starting with one of my songs called People Singing from the Balconies. Let's listen to the nice dynamic control and warmer tone with the Mu on this acoustic guitar bus. We'll listen to the plugin bypassed and active, solo, and then in context. Let's listen to it in context now.
There's a wave of hope born in Italy that got people singing from their balconies. So many people home and free, singing together from their balconies. Let's look at the stars together, each one more beautiful than the other.
Same song again, but now with the Mu bypassed and active on both the drum bus and the guitar bus. The attack time on the bus drum is slower than on the guitar bus, and same goes for the release. Right, let's listen to it in context now.
There's a wave of hope born in Italy that got people singing from their balconies. So many people home and free, singing together from their balconies. Let's look at the stars together, each one more beautiful than the other.
This is a track that I mixed and mastered for a client and friend of mine here in Belgium called Laurent. Hi Laurent. And his project is actually called Turbo Cowboy, and the song is called Belong. And you'll find the link in the description, as well as all the other songs that I've mentioned in this demo. So listen to how the compressor on the drums really glues the drums together and brings the kick and snare together a bit more. Okay, let's listen to it in context now.
I can feel you're happy from a distance. You can feel I'm sad, though we're miles away. I can feel you're happy from a distance. And you can feel I'm sad, though we're miles away. 'Cause we...
Talking about glue, let's listen to the Mu on the master bus of one of my songs called Silence in Handwriting. Again, mid-attack, faster release, and up to 2 dB of gain reduction.
Just stop covering your eyes. We can dust off the trouble we're in. Just stop covering your mouth. Help release the silence within. Just stop covering your eyes. We can dust off the trouble we're in. Just stop covering your mouth. Help release the silence within.
More glue with my synthwave pop track called Mental Image of the New Kind. This time with a slower attack time and less than a dB of gain reduction. And even such a subtle change can be effective. The mix knob is less than 100% to keep the natural dynamics of the track. So really smooth compression here.
We love surprises when they give us more. Strange sequences, dynamic core. Tattooed memories on my body inked. Final proofs of a world gone extinct. Steering clear from battery-powered wars. My body's weakened but my spirit soars. Should we embrace change? I'm the last human to witness
now we'll listen to my voice first in solo and then in context for my song Morse Code on the North Star. In the original mix, I actually used 2 compressors, but listen to how the Mu changes the tone of the vocal and remains smooth even with 4 dB of compression on the vocal.
In altitude I'm living, in latitude I'm opening, in gratitude I'm breathing, in longitude I'm remembering. Why is the world out there so bright? Be brave enough to accept the light. My gratitude is on par with the Morse code on the North Star.
Okay, let's listen to it in context now.
In altitude I'm living, in latitude I'm opening, in gratitude I'm breathing, in longitude I'm remembering. Why is the world out there so bright? Be brave enough to accept the light. My gratitude is on par with the Morse code on the North Star.
Well, I think that by now it won't come as a surprise that I love this compressor. My favourite uses for it are drum buses, acoustic guitars, electric guitar buses, orchestral buses, and even vocals, maybe paired in series with a FET compressor. So if you're looking for a compressor that works tremendously well with acoustic instruments, or will add glow to even harder styles of music, well, this is one for you. So this is a review that's long overdue, and I must admit that I've used this compressor a lot on my different projects, and I think I wanted to kind of show you the different projects that I've been working on, because actually this compressor has been used on commercial projects that I've released, so you'll find that in the description. Thank you so much, Vincent. Merci beaucoup à toi. Thank you for releasing such amazing plugins for us producers. So guys, if you're interested in this plugin, you'll find the links in the description. Go to pulsar.audio for a demo version of the plugin and other plugins that they've released. Thank you very much for following me, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so, and please let me know what your favorite Vari-Mu compressor is in the comments section down below, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye.